The strange signal, the silence of deep space was endless. Stars burned far away, cold and distant like tiny fires in a sea of darkness. A lone human ship drifted between them. It was a small exploration vessel, carrying only a few crew members. Their mission was simple: map unknown sectors, study strange phenomena, and return home with knowledge. For months, nothing unusual had happened. The days passed slowly. The crew had grown used to the silence of the void, but silence never lasts forever. Late in the ship's night cycle, when most of the crew were resting, the ship's computer detected something, an anomaly in the communication bands. A signal, weak, broken but alive. Alarms echoed softly across the command deck. The captain, a man named Elias Grant, hurried to his station. His eyes scanned the flickering screen. The signal was strange, not from Earth, not from any known colony. It carried tones, rhythms, and words that were alien, but hidden beneath the static there was a voice, not mechanical, not robotic, a living voice, please. Help us, humans, only humans, before it is too late. The crew gathered quickly, their tired eyes wide with disbelief. Lieutenant Sarah, the communications officer, replayed the message. Everyone listened in silence. The voice was terrified, desperate, almost broken, and the words were clear: only humans can help. Why? The galaxy was full of advanced species. Some were older, wiser, stronger. Humans were newcomers compared to them. Why would anyone, anywhere, call for humanity? The crew exchanged nervous glances. Suspicion grew in their minds. Could it be a trap? Pirates sometimes faked distress signals. Some hostile species used lures to capture ships. Yet this felt different. The fear in that voice could not be faked so easily. Captain Grant leaned back in his chair, his face tense. Run a trace, he ordered. Find the source of this call. Sarah worked quickly, fingers moving across the console. The computer struggled with the broken signal, but slowly, piece by piece, the origin appeared on the map. A sector far from human colonies. A place known only for scattered ruins and strange readings. Few ships ever went there. The crew felt the weight of the decision pressing on them. To follow the signal meant danger. To ignore it meant turning their backs on a plea for help. But the words echoed again in their minds. Only humans can save us. Grant made his choice. Plot a course, he said. We're going to find out who is calling for us. And why? The engines roared to life. The ship turned into the dark, leaving behind the safety of mapped space. As the hours passed, the crew gathered in the common room. Their conversation was filled with questions. Why humans? Asked Dr. Lenora Hayes, the ship's scientist. We are not the strongest. The Teari have greater fleets. The Zalkesh are brilliant strategists. Even the Archons are older than us by millions of years. Why us? Maybe, said Sarah quietly, because we are different. Maybe they know something the others don't. Her words unsettled them. Different. Was it a compliment or a curse? The journey stretched on. Stars blurred past as the ship traveled through the dark lanes of hyperspace. The crew could not rest easily. Each one felt the same weight, the same fear. They were not just flying toward a signal. They were flying into the unknown. Then, as if the universe wanted to remind them of the danger, something strange happened. The signal, once faint and broken, grew louder, clearer. Humans, we beg you. They are coming. They will destroy everything. Only you can resist them. The voice cracked with pain like the last breath of a dying being. Static swallowed the rest. The crew sat frozen. This was no trick. This was terror. Sarah's hands trembled as she lowered her headset. Whoever they are, she whispered. They're running out of time. Captain Grant stood slowly. His voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed unease. Then we better not waste any of it. Outside, space stretched cold and endless. But the ship carried something more than engines and steel. It carried human hearts, curious, stubborn, unyielding, and somewhere ahead in the ruins of a dying world, someone waited for them. Someone who believed that only humans could stand against what was coming. The crew did not know what awaited them. They did not know if they would survive. But one thing was certain. The silence of space had been broken, a desperate plea had reached them, and soon, the most perilous beings would arrive. The journey into the unknown, the human ship Aurora's light cut through the dark sea of space. Its engines hummed like a heartbeat, steady but restless. Behind it, safe space and known star maps faded away. Ahead lay the unknown, uncharted sectors where few dared to travel. Captain Elias Grant stood at the viewing deck. Stars blurred into long streaks as the ship passed through hyperspace. His reflection stared back at him from the glass. Tired eyes, sharp jaw, and a face that carried both fear and determination. He whispered to himself, "Only humans." Why us? The weight of the signal. The signal had changed everything. Before, this mission was routine. Now every member of the crew felt the same invisible weight pressing on their shoulders. Lieutenant Sarah replayed the voice again and again, searching for hidden codes or deception. Each time, the voice sounded the same. Broken, frightened, desperate. Dr. Lenora Hayes filled page after page in her digital journal, listing theories. Could be biological warfare. Could be a species immune to us. Could be telepathic enemies. But none of this explains why only humans are asked. Engineer Marcus Doyle tried to laugh it off. Maybe we're just too stubborn to die. That's our reputation, right? But no one laughed with him. The unknown had a way of killing humor. Strange signs. 3 days into their journey, the first anomaly appeared. The ship's sensors detected a derelict vessel drifting in space. Its design was alien. No known species used such technology. The hull was torn open as if something had ripped through it from inside. No life signs, no power. Just silence. The crew launched a probe. Cameras revealed twisted corridors and walls scarred with black burns. Strange claw marks dragged across the metal. Sarah muttered, "That ship didn't die in battle. It was hunted." The wreck vanished behind them, swallowed by darkness. But the unease remained. If that was what awaited them ahead, they were walking willingly into the mouth of death. Conversations in the dark at night cycles, the crew could not sleep. They gathered in the common area, voices hushed as though the void itself was listening. Dr. Hayes leaned forward, her voice low. Maybe humans were chosen because of something in our minds. History shows it. We survive when others fall. We bend rules, break patterns. Perhaps that's what these beings cannot predict. Marcus shook his head. Or maybe we're just bait. Maybe someone wants to lure us, Sarah frowned. If it's a trap, why ask for humans? Why not any species? Captain Grant finally spoke. His voice was firm yet heavy. We don't know the truth yet. But if someone is calling for us, we answer. That's what it means to be human. The room fell silent. His words echoed in their thoughts. The ghost stars on the 5th day, the journey grew stranger. They passed a cluster of stars that seemed dim, like fading candles. Worlds circled them, but each planet was lifeless. Gray wastelands stripped of oceans and air. Sensors picked up ruins on one of the planets. Tall towers crumbled into ash, cities swallowed by sand. Once something had lived there. Now only silence, Sarah whispered. This is what they fear. Whoever called us, they watched this happen to their own worlds. The ship did not land. They had no time. But the ghost stars lingered in their minds as warnings. A shadow in the distance on the 7th day, as hyperspace lanes twisted, something moved. Marcus was the first to see it. A shadow larger than any ship drifting just beyond the scanners. No light, no heat, no signal. Only darkness shaped like a predator. Is it following us? Sarah asked. Captain Grant studied the readings. The shadow moved when they moved. It slowed when they slowed. Always far enough to remain unclear, but close enough to remind them it was there. Not a ship. Not natural. Something else. Grant gave the order. Stay on course. Don't engage. If it wants us, it will show itself. The crew obeyed, but none of them could sleep that night. The signal grows as they neared the coordinates of the distress call. The signal grew louder. What was once broken static became clearer words. Humans. You must hurry. The perilous beings are near. They cannot be stopped. Only delayed. The voice cracked with pain and fear. Sometimes other noises bled into the transmission. Roars, screams, the sound of destruction. Each time the crew froze, feeling those sounds cut into their souls. Sarah whispered, They're dying. Whoever they are, they're dying as we listen. The captain's resolve on the final approach, the crew gathered on the bridge. The coordinates pointed to a single planet, marked as abandoned in old maps. But the signal pulsed from there like a heartbeat. Captain Grant looked at his crew. We don't know what we'll find. But remember this, we are not explorers anymore. We are the answer to a call. Someone believes only humans can face this. Maybe they're wrong. Maybe they're right. But we will find out. The ship broke through hyperspace. Stars snapped back into view. Ahead, a ruined world floated in the darkness, its surface scarred by fire and war. The signal screamed louder than ever. Please, hurry before they come back. And at that moment, every heart on the ship knew. The journey into the unknown had only just begun. The ruined world. The Aurora's light dropped out of hyperspace with a low hum. The stars settled into their natural positions, bright and cold. But ahead of the human ship there was no brightness, only a wounded planet floating in silence. The world was scarred, its surface blackened with deep cracks that glowed faintly, as if the planet itself still bled fire. Broken satellites drifted in orbit, dead and silent like bones around a corpse. The crew stared in awe. No one spoke at first. The image filled the viewing deck, too heavy for words. Finally, Captain Grant broke the silence. Prepare a scan. I want everything: atmosphere, radiation, life signs. The first signs of life. Sarah's console flickered with data. The atmosphere was thin, poisoned but still breathable for short periods. Radiation levels were high but not deadly. Then her eyes widened. Captain, I'm reading faint life signs, not many. Scattered across the surface. The crew leaned closer. Against all odds, someone was still alive down there. Dr. Hayes whispered. After all this destruction. How? Grant gave the order without hesitation. Prepare a landing party. Descent into silence. The shuttle detached from the Aurora's light, cutting through the planet's gray clouds. From above, the crew saw the ruins of cities. Vast structures torn apart, towers snapped in half, streets buried under ash. Rivers had dried into cracks and forests lay in burned stumps. It was not war. It was worse. It was extinction. The shuttle touched down in the middle of what had once been a grand city. The silence was unbearable, broken only by the hiss of the engines cooling. The humans stepped out in light suits, their boots crunching against black dust. Sarah looked around. This place is empty, like the world itself gave up. Dr. Hayes bent to study the ground. Strange scorch marks twisted across the streets. Marks that looked less like weapons fire and more like claws. The survivors' movement stirred in the distance. Figures crawled out from the shadows of collapsed buildings, thin, frail, covered in torn fabric. Their skin shimmered faintly, a translucent gray with glowing veins beneath. Aliens. Survivors. One of them stumbled forward, collapsing near the humans. His voice was weak, trembling, but clear enough to understand. Humans, you came. The crew froze. The voice was the same one from the distress call. Dr. Hayes knelt beside him. We heard your message. We came as fast as we could. What happened here? The alien's eyes flickered with a strange light. Fear mixed with hope. He tried to speak but choked on the words. Finally, he whispered one phrase that sent chills down their spines. They came. The perilous beings. We could not stop them. The warning more survivors approached, moving slowly, their bodies frail and trembling. Their leader, an older alien with scars running across his chest, spoke with a shaking voice. We thought our walls were strong. We thought our fleets were enough. But nothing stopped them. They burned our skies, shattered our armies. We begged other species for help, none came, and then we remembered humans. Captain Grant frowned. Why humans? Why not the Archons or the Tiari? The alien's voice grew sharper. Because they were destroyed too. The perilous beings swept through them as well. Only humans remain untouched. Only humans resist in ways they cannot understand. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Why were they untouched? Was it luck? Or something darker? Signs of the enemy as the survivors led them deeper into the ruins. The crew saw the evidence everywhere. Entire blocks had been carved open by enormous claws. Buildings melted as if devoured by acid. Vehicles lay torn apart, their metal frames twisted like toys. But the most terrifying sight was the shadows burned into the walls, dark, human-like shapes frozen in mid-scream. Dr. Hayes whispered, These aren't weapons. This is something else. Something unnatural. The alien leader nodded slowly. They are not like you or us. They are not soldiers. They are hunger itself. When they arrive, there is no negotiation. No surrender. Only silence. The crew felt the air grow colder around them. The last plea inside a broken hall, the survivors gathered. Only a few dozen remained of what must have once been millions. Their eyes all turned to the humans, filled with desperate hope. The leader fell to his knees. You must help us. You must stand against them. Only you can. Grant stepped forward. Why? What makes us different? The alien looked at him with trembling eyes. Because you are unpredictable. Because you fight when all reason says to run. Because you are not afraid of death, and that is what they fear. The words hung heavy in the ruined air. A shadow. Overhead suddenly the ground shook. Dust fell from the broken ceiling. A low roar echoed across the ruins, deeper than thunder, darker than any storm. The survivors panicked, rushing to the walls, their voices trembling. They are here. They have returned. The humans ran back outside. The sky was torn with dark clouds, and from the horizon, shadows moved, massive shapes walking like giants, their outlines barely visible through the smoke. The perilous beings had come. Captain Grant's voice cut through the fear. Back to the shuttle, now! But even as they ran, every human knew the truth. The ruins were not silent anymore. The real danger had arrived. The perilous beings appear. The ruins shook with every step. Dust rained down from broken towers, and the air trembled like a drumbeat. The humans had felt fear before, but never like this. This was something heavier, deeper, as if the planet itself feared what was coming. Captain Grant and his crew rushed toward the shuttle, the survivors stumbling behind them. The sky darkened, clouds twisting unnaturally. Shadows stretched long across the ruins, even though the sun was faint behind the smoke. Then, from the horizon, they came. The first sight. First, it was impossible to understand what they were looking at. Shapes, too tall, too wide, too wrong, moved through the haze. Their bodies shifted like living storms, part shadow, part flesh. Their outlines never stayed still. One moment they looked like twisted beasts, the next like towering humanoid figures. Dr. Hayes whispered, her voice trembling. They're not bound to one form. The closer they came, the louder the sound grew. A deep hum mixed with growls, a noise that pressed against the human skulls like invisible claws. Sarah clutched her head. It's in my mind. They're inside my mind. Terror spreads, the survivors screamed and scattered. Some fell to their knees, trembling, unable to move. Others clawed at their own faces as if trying to pull the voices out of their heads. One survivor collapsed in front of Captain Grant, blood dripping from his ears. His final words were a broken whisper. We cannot resist them. But you can. The man's body went still. The crew froze in horror, but Grant snapped them back to action. Move now. Closer and closer, the perilous beings were now fully visible. Their bodies shimmered with black energy, bending the air around them. Eyes, too many eyes, glowed faintly across their forms, shifting places as if alive. Their long arms reached the ground, claws dragging sparks from the broken streets. But the most terrifying part was their silence. They did not roar, they did not shout. They simply walked forward, unstoppable, as if the world already belonged to them. Dr. Hayes muttered, They're studying us, like hunters watching prey. The first attack without warning, one of the beings raised its claw. A wave of black energy burst forward, tearing through a collapsed building. The structure disintegrated in seconds, not with fire, not with heat, just gone as though it had never existed. The shockwave threw the humans to the ground. Marcus coughed, trying to stand. That wasn't a weapon. That was them. The survivors screamed louder. Whole sections of the ruins vanished under invisible attacks. The perilous beings were erasing the world piece by piece. Humans resist. But where the survivors collapsed in despair, the humans pushed forward. Captain Grant dragged Sarah to her feet. Marcus fired the shuttle's portable railgun, the shot striking one of the monsters square in the chest. For the first time, the impossible happened. The being staggered. It did not die. It did not fall, but it reacted. Its body rippled, the black energy flickering like a wounded flame. The crew stared in disbelief. It can be hurt, Sarah whispered. Grant's jaw tightened. Then that's what makes us different. The chase, the crew fired again and again, covering the survivors as they rushed toward the shuttle. The perilous beings moved faster now, their steps shaking the ground. One of them leapt, crossing an entire block in a single bound, landing so close that its shadow swallowed the humans. Its eyes, all glowing, all focused, stared directly into Grant. His mind filled with whispers, promises of death, memories twisted into nightmares. But instead of breaking, Grant gritted his teeth. "You don't scare me." He raised his rifle and fired straight into its glowing core. The being shrieked, not with sound but with vibrations that shook the sky. The crew dragged him back and they ran harder than ever. A narrow escape. The shuttle came into view, its ramp still open. The humans shoved the survivors inside. Marcus powered the engines while Sarah covered them with suppressive fire. One of the beings swung its claw. The ground split open, a black fissure racing toward the shuttle. The earth crumbled, fire bursting out. "Go, go, go," Grant shouted. The shuttle lifted just as the fissure reached it. The ground below collapsed into a smoking pit. The engines roared, pulling them upward through the dark sky, but even in the air, they were not safe. The perilous beings raised their claws to the heavens, and black energy streaked upward like lightning, striking the shuttle's shields. Sparks flew inside the cockpit. Marcus shouted, "Shields won't hold long." Above the ruins, the shuttle broke through the clouds, leaving the ruined city below. But the danger was not over. The crew stared out the windows as the planet's horizon filled with movement. Dozens more perilous beings marched across the surface, their glowing forms rising like an endless army. Sarah gasped. "There are so many." Dr. Hayes's face went pale. "If they spread beyond this world," the words hung in the air unfinished. Everyone understood. If these creatures reached other planets, entire civilizations would fall just as this one had. The human realization, inside the shuttle, silence settled. The survivors huddled together, shaking. The crew caught their breath, but their eyes stayed locked on the horrors below. Grant finally spoke. His voice was quiet but steady. "Now we know what we're facing. And now I know why they called for humans." Sarah turned to him. "Because we fought back." Grant nodded slowly. "Because we can fight back." Everyone else ran. Everyone else broke. But humans, we resist. The shuttle redocked with the Aurora's light. But as they entered orbit, the captain knew one truth. This was not the end. This was only the beginning of humanity's war against the perilous beings, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. Why humans? The Aurora's light floated in orbit above the ruined planet, its hull scarred from the last attack. Inside, the crew gathered in the main chamber, their faces pale but determined. The rescued survivors, alien refugees, sat quietly along the walls, their glowing eyes full of both fear and hope. The room was heavy with silence until Captain Elias Grant spoke. "We saw them. We fought them. Now tell us, why us? Why humans?" The alien leader, the one with scars across his chest, rose slowly to his feet. His body trembled with exhaustion, but his voice carried strength. "The story of the lost our people," the alien began, "were once proud. We built cities that touched the skies. We crossed the stars, made alliances, traded knowledge. We thought ourselves strong." He paused, his eyes filled with sorrow. "But then they came, the perilous beings. They do not conquer. They do not demand. They only destroy. Our fleets burned. Our armies collapsed. Our minds broke under their whispers. We begged the other great species for help, but one by one they too fell." The crew listened in silence. The weight of his words sank deep into their bones. "Then," the alien continued, "we remembered the humans. We remembered your kind, unpredictable, stubborn, reckless even. Where others seek safety, humans rush into storms. Where others obey fear, humans resist it. That is why our last message was to you." "A dark testimony, Doctor." Lenora Hayes leaned forward. "But how do you know this? Have you fought alongside humans before?" The alien nodded slowly. "Long ago, in battles forgotten by your people but remembered by ours. The humans did not win with strength. They won with defiance. They survived disasters no other species endured. You adapt. You improvise. And the perilous beings. They cannot predict you," Sarah frowned. "Predict?" The alien's glowing eyes met hers. "They invade minds. They bend thoughts. Against us their whispers are chains. Against others their visions are blades. But against humans, their power falters. You resist where others surrender. That resistance terrifies them." The humans exchanged uneasy glances. Resistance, defiance. Was that truly their greatest weapon? The doubt engineer Marcus Doyle slammed his fist lightly against the table. "So let me understand this. You called us because we're stubborn?" The alien tilted his head. "Because you are unpredictable. And because you do not fear death in the same way we do. Where others see the end, you see the fight. Marcus shook his head in disbelief. That's not a strategy. That's madness. But Captain Grant's expression was different. His jaw tightened, his eyes focused. He understood. Humanity's history was filled with impossible wars, with desperate battles where survival seemed hopeless. And yet they endured. The whisper test. Suddenly one of the survivors spoke, a younger alien, frail and weak. Show them. They must understand, the leader nodded. He raised his trembling hand and pressed it against the table. A faint crystal embedded in his skin began to glow. Inside this crystal, he said, we captured a fragment of their presence, a whisper of the perilous beings. For us it breaks the mind. But if humans can resist, then you are truly our last hope. The crew exchanged nervous looks. Sarah asked quietly, and if we can't? The alien's voice was cold. Then we all die. The crystal pulsed. The chamber darkened, shadows stretching unnaturally. A voice, not one but many, echoed inside their skulls. You are weak. You will fall. Surrender to silence. The humans gasped, clutching their heads. Visions flashed before them. Burning Earth cities, oceans boiling, skies filled with black storms. Each voice pushed harder, trying to break their minds. Dr. Hayes dropped to her knees, teeth gritted. Marcus groaned, gripping the table so tightly his knuckles turned white. Sarah trembled, whispering, not real. Not real? And then Captain Grant roared. Enough! The vision shattered. The voices retreated. The chamber returned to normal. The crystal cracked in half, smoke rising from it. The alien leader stared at the humans with wide eyes. You resisted. All of you. No other species has done this. The truth revealed, breathing heavily. Sarah wiped sweat from her face. So that's it. That's why you called us. Because they can't break our minds, the alien nodded. Your defiance is their weakness. If you can resist their whispers, you can fight them. And if you can fight them, perhaps they can be stopped. Dr. Hayes looked thoughtful, though still shaken. We're not immune, but we're harder to break. That might be enough, Marcus muttered. Or it might just get us killed slower. But deep down, even he knew the truth. Humans had something no one else did. A heavy decision. Captain Grant looked at his crew, then at the survivors. His voice was steady. If this is true, then humanity is not safe. Earth is not safe. These things will come for us sooner or later. The alien leader lowered his head. Yes, they will not stop until all life is gone. But with humans there is hope. Grant clenched his fists. Then we don't have a choice, we fight. Not just for Earth, but for every world that still breathes. The crew felt the weight of his words. Fear was heavy in their hearts, but so was determination. The ominous signal before anyone could speak further, the ship's alarms screamed. Sarah rushed to the console. Her face went pale. Captain, new signal detected. Multiple signatures? Heading this way, fast. Grant's voice was cold and sharp. How many? Sarah swallowed. Too many. Outside the viewing deck, the stars shifted. Dark shapes appeared on the edge of the system, moving with unnatural speed. The perilous beings had found them, and this time, the humans knew exactly why. The human stand. The alarms of the Aurora's light echoed through every corridor. Red lights pulsed against the metal walls. The crew rushed to their stations while the rescued aliens trembled in the corners, whispering prayers in their own tongue. Captain Elias Grant stood tall on the command deck, his eyes fixed on the display. Black shapes moved in the void, hundreds of them sliding closer like living shadows. The perilous beings had come. They've found us, Sarah whispered, her voice shaking. Grant's jaw tightened. Then we make our stand, preparing for battle. The ship was small. It was not built for war. Its weapons were light railguns and defensive cannons, meant for pirates, not for monsters that consumed worlds. Engineer Marcus Doyle cursed under his breath. We're throwing rocks at a hurricane. Dr. Hayes shot him a sharp look. Then make those rocks count. The crew worked quickly, pushing the ship beyond its limits. Shields reinforced, weapons charged, systems rerouted. Sparks flew as Marcus tore panels open with his bare hands, rewiring power directly into the weapons. This will either burn us alive, he muttered, or make us hit twice as hard. The survivors' fear in the lower decks, the alien survivors huddled together. Their leader approached Grant, his voice shook. You should leave us. Save your crew. We are already finished. Grant looked at him, his eyes hard. No, we don't leave people behind. Not humans, not anyone. If we fall together. But we fight first. The alien lowered his head in silence. For the first time, he saw what made humans different. First contact, the perilous beings closed in. The void outside the viewing deck shimmered with their forms. They did not fly ships. They were the ships moving with impossible speed, their bodies bending space around them. Range closing, Sarah reported. Her voice trembled, but her hand stayed steady on the console. 20 seconds, Grant raised his voice. All stations, fire on my command. The silence of space stretched thin. Then the first being lunged forward, a wave of black energy pouring from its claws. Fire! The Aurora's light lit up with cannon fire and railgun bursts. Metal slugs tore through the void, striking one of the creatures square in its core. The being convulsed, its form rippling with light before bursting apart into a cloud of dark mist. For the first time, the crew saw it. A perilous being destroyed. They counterattacked, but victory was short. The others screamed, not with sound but with vibrations that shook the ship's hull. Black lightning struck the shields, tearing through them like paper. Systems sparked, alarms blared. Marcus shouted from engineering. Shields at 50%. Another strike hit, shaking the ship violently. The survivors screamed, clutching each other. Grant's voice cut through the chaos. Stay focused. We can hurt them. That means we can kill them. Human ingenuity, Doctor. Hayes worked quickly, her mind racing. Captain, they expect us to fight directly. But we're human, we don't fight fair. Grant nodded. What do you have in mind? She pointed to the wreckage still floating in orbit from the ruined satellites. Use the debris. Turn it into weapons, Marcus grinned, despite the chaos. I can rig the tractor beams. Throw those chunks of metal right down their throats. Do it, Grant ordered. Moments later, the Aurora's light dragged a massive satellite into position. As the next perilous being charged, Marcus released the beam. The satellite slammed into the creature, crushing it against another. Both dissolved into ash, the crew cheered. Humanity's creativity had struck again. Close quarters, but the enemy was relentless. One of the beings latched onto the ship, claws tearing at the hull. The metal groaned as cracks spread across the outer layers. Sarah shouted, "They're boarding us!" The corridors filled with screams as shadows seeped through the cracks. Shapes formed, smaller versions of the perilous beings crawling inside like hunting dogs. The crew grabbed rifles. Grant led them down the corridor, his weapon tight in his hands. The air grew cold, whispers filling their minds. Give up. Fault, silence awaits you. But the humans fought. Bullets tore through the shadows, their light cores exploding into mist. Grant fired until his rifle overheated, every shot fueled by defiance. Turning the tide hours felt like minutes. The ship shook under constant attack, systems failing one by one. But the humans refused to surrender. Sarah rerouted power manually, her hands blistered from sparks. Marcus fought like a madman in engineering, using tools as weapons against shadow creatures that slipped inside. Dr. Hayes recorded every weakness she saw, calculating patterns even in chaos. And Captain Grant, he stood at the front, firing, shouting, never letting fear win. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the enemy began to retreat. The perilous beings pulled back into the void, their forms rippling in frustration. For the first time, they were forced to withdraw. The aftermath. The Aurora's light floated battered and broken, smoke filling its halls. The crew collapsed into their chairs, exhausted but alive. Sarah wiped blood from her forehead. We made them retreat, Dr. Hayes' voice shook. No one else has ever done that. Not once. The alien leader stepped forward, his eyes wide with awe. It is true. You are different. Where we broke, you stood. Where we surrendered, you fought. Grant looked at his crew. His voice was steady, but his heart was heavy. We didn't win. We survived. That's the first step. The shadow of tomorrow. As the humans caught their breath, Sarah's console beeped. A new reading flashed across the screen. Her face went pale. Captain, this was only a scouting force. The room fell silent. Grant closed his eyes, the weight of the future pressing down on him. Then we have little time. Humanity must prepare. The galaxy must prepare, because the real war is coming. Outside the viewing deck, the stars shone cold and distant. Somewhere in that endless darkness, the perilous beings were gathering their strength, and humanity had just declared themselves as enemies. A costly victory. The Aurora's light drifted in silence. Smoke curled from broken panels. Sparks flickered in the corridors. Every breath inside the ship felt heavy, as if the air itself carried the weight of what had just happened. The crew sat in silence, bloodied, bruised, and exhausted. The battle was over, for now. The perilous beings had retreated into the void, their shadows dissolving back into the dark. For the first time, humans had forced them to pull away. But victory did not feel like triumph. It felt like survival. Barely. The COS captain Elias Grant walked slowly across the deck. His uniform was torn, his face cut from flying debris. He looked at his crew, alive but broken. Marcus sat slumped in a chair, one arm wrapped in makeshift bandages, his hands still blackened from burned wires. Sarah leaned against her console, her headset cracked, her eyes red from strain. Dr. Hayes coughed weakly, still recovering from the psychic assault during the fight. And worse, 3 of the alien survivors were gone. Their empty seats in the chamber said enough. Grant's voice was low. We stood our ground. But we paid for it. The room was silent. No one argued. Everyone knew it was true. The survivors' gratitude, the alien leader stepped forward, his glowing eyes dim with sorrow. He bowed deeply.
Many of us would have died long before now if not for you.
Today we saw something no other species has shown against the perilous beings. Resistance. Defiance. Victory. Grant shook his head. This wasn't victory. Not yet, we pushed them back. That's all. The alien's voice grew stronger. For us, that is victory. You proved they are not gods. They are not invincible. And that hope is worth everything. For the first time, the survivors looked at the humans not with fear, but with awe. The wound in the sky, but hope was fragile. Outside the ship, the ruined planet still burned. From orbit, its surface looked like a wound, a scar in the galaxy. Entire continents lay shattered, oceans turned to ash. Dr. Hayes stared at the planet on the screen. This is what happens if we fail. Earth could look like this. Every colony, every world, her words sank into everyone's hearts. The thought of Earth, blue oceans, green forests, cities alive with light, falling into silence was unbearable. Grant's voice hardened. That's why we cannot stop. This fight isn't about one world. It's about all of them. The message Sarah's console beeped. A weak signal flickered across her screen. At first, she thought it was another distress call. But as she tuned it, her face grew pale. Captain, it's them, the crew froze. The voice that followed was not human, not alien. It was something else. A chorus of whispers, layered and broken, echoing inside their skulls. You resist. You fight. You delay. But you cannot win. We are endless. We are silence. And silence always comes, the crew shivered. The message ended with static. Grant clenched his fists. Let them come. We'll be ready. But deep inside, he knew the truth. They had seen only a fraction of the enemy's strength, a plan forged in fire, Doctor. Hayes stood, her body weak but her voice sharp. Captain, we need more than weapons. We need knowledge. If we study them, if we learn their patterns, their weaknesses, we may find a way to truly defeat them. Marcus added, and we'll need allies. The galaxy won't believe us unless we show them proof. Grant nodded. Then that's our mission. We'll take what we've seen, what we've done, and we'll warn the others. Humanity will not stand alone. Not this time. The alien leader stepped forward. We will follow you. Our worlds are broken, but our spirits remain. If humans lead, others will join. For the first time, a glimmer of unity lit the room. The farewell. The crew buried the lost survivors on the planet below. The ruined soil was dry and cracked, but they marked the graves with stones, simple and unyielding. Sarah whispered as they stood together. We'll carry your voices with us. You won't be forgotten. Grant placed his hand on the final stone. You called for humans, and we came. Now we carry this fight for you, for us, for everyone. The wind howled through the ruins as if answering his vow. A fragile victory. Back aboard the Aurora's light, the crew prepared for departure. Systems were damaged, weapons nearly spent, but the engines still burned strong. As the ship pulled away from the broken planet, the survivors watched their home shrink into the distance. Tears glimmered in their strange eyes. Dr. Hayes murmured, "A whole world lost. And this is only the beginning." Grant's gaze stayed locked on the stars ahead. Then we make sure it's not the end. The cliffhanger. As the ship entered hyperspace, the void outside shimmered. For a brief moment, Sarah swore she saw them again. Shadows in the stars, watching, waiting. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "They're not gone. They're following us." Grant didn't deny it. He placed a hand on the console, steady and firm. "Let them follow. Humanity doesn't run from the dark. We bring the light." The stars stretched, pulling the ship into the unknown. The galaxy was wide, full of fear and silence, but now it had something else. It had humans, and humans were not done fighting.